to Off Limits. Liberal, irreverent, oh, and really, really gay. You're listening to Off Limits. Liberal, irreverent, oh, and really, really gay.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Off Limits Show. Sorry about that. It's been a while since I've done a show. Anyway, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me, whether you're listening live or listening in the archives. Thank you. It is the first show of the Off Limits Show in 2017. And I have not done an Off Limits show in a while. I say it every single show. I know that. I know you're probably getting sick of me saying that all the time. But, life actually does happen. So I don't always get to do the show when I want to do it, especially when there's huge things happening like they are right now in America with gay rights and women's rights and the Trumpism movement, as I'll call it. So I definitely have a lot of things I wanted to discuss today, just a little old me by myself on my show, as I used to always do. So if you do want to call into the show, you can call in at 214-377-0481. If you, by using Skype, by the way, if you want to call in using Skype, you call Off Limits Show. And I'm happy to have a discussion with you about what we're talking about today, which is everything alternative facts, which basically means anything that comes out of Donald Trump's mouth or Kellyanne Conway's mouth is basically an alternative fact. And the fact that she even said, if you don't know or not aware, Kellyanne Conway, who was counselor to Donald Trump, said in an interview, I think it was with CNN or Fox or I don't know, somebody, that what their press secretary had said about the numbers at the inauguration was an alternative fact, and he presented alternative facts. I mean, wow. The fact that the counselor, whatever you call her, to the president of the United States and someone who helped get him elected would call a lie an alternative fact is just hilarious to me. I mean, talk about a spin doctor. And the sad thing is that there are certainly people out there who believe her and would believe her when she says alternative fact. He presented an alternative fact. Now, isn't an alternative fact a lie? Isn't that what an alternative fact is? If something is not factual and you're presenting it as fact, doesn't that make it a lie? I think it does, right? Anyway, I'm just a little confused by how anyone with a brain would buy into that. Of course, the people who voted for Trump don't have brains anyway. So I guess it makes sense. It follows that they would believe the bullshit that comes out of her mouth, right? Anyway, I'm just appalled at the fact that we have now Donald Trump as president of the United States of America. Now, you all know how much I cannot stand him. I think he's a horrible person, abhorrent person. And I think I just know by his, by proof. I mean, we've seen the videos, we've seen the things he says about women, how he treats women. He's been accused of doing these things to women and assaulting and raping women, including a 12-year-old girl he's been accused of raping. And we've seen how he treats his wife, Melania Trump. We've seen how he is unnaturally close, it seems, to his daughter Ivanka. We've seen how these people are, without a doubt, the most fucked up assholes that you could ever imagine being the head of the free world. Now, to me, they represent the bullies in school, in high school or middle school or whatever, right? That's basically what they are. That's who Trump is. And he was the rich white kid who was really popular with a certain group of people, and he was an asshole and pushed people and made fun of the gays and made fun of them, and treated women horribly like trash and tissue. Excuse me, I'm getting over a bronchitis thing, sorry. And he was that person in high school that, that's who he represents to me. And his entire posse is that, the people who didn't give a fuck about anybody else but themselves. And that's essentially who he is. And he's the most narcissistic personality I've ever seen in my life. And I mean, I could go on and on, of course, about this man and how horrible he is. But let's just discuss some of the things that, Trump has done while he's been in office thus far. Hold on, I'm sorry. Sorry, I was responding to somebody. Let's just discuss some of the things that Trump has done so far since he's been president of the United States already. First of all, he has ended the involvement in the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And this was a trade agreement that President Obama was trying to push through Congress, and that would have helped to. It was sort of like helping to make trade deals with America, and somewhat to help us get back into the game when it comes to imports and exports and that sort of thing, and across the Pacific Ocean and across with China and that sort of thing. And it was a good thing. And of course, Trump stopped that. He also issued an executive order on Obamacare. Now, he can't completely undo Obamacare just by, with a stroke of his pen. He would have to have Congress act if he intends to repeal the Affordable Care Act, which is Obamacare, in any way whatsoever. So, however, he did sign an executive order saying that he was going to roll back the law. And his order stated that the Department of Health and Human Services had to minimize the financial burden of Obamacare on citizens and states and insurers or others through regulations as far as possible under the existing statute. So it's not clear exactly what the effect that will have in the short term, but it shifts the priority of the Department of Health and Human Services, of the priority of that agency running the law from actively promoting Obamacare to reducing its impacts on everybody. So basically, he's limiting Obamacare's effectiveness as much as possible until he can try his hardest to repeal the law. Now, that is, of course, a ridiculously horrible thing for America. Now, since Obamacare has been implemented, the majority of Americans now have insurance. For better or for worse, they have health insurance, and that has taken the burden off a great deal of the healthcare system in terms of ERs and providing medical care and not being paid using that, and instead of going to primary care physicians now that they can. And so it's done a lot in that sense. And also, one of the main tenets of Obamacare is that you cannot be discriminated against or not insurable because of a pre-existing condition. And that is huge for so many millions of people in America who have diabetes or HIV or cancer or, Parkinson's or whatever disease they may have, excuse me, or heart disease, anything. and things sometimes that are not even their own fault. For example, what's the word I'm looking for? Congenital diseases and things that we're born with that they can't control, which are considered pre-existing conditions, which they could not get insurance to cover because insurers did not want to cover them because they were a higher cost to them. So, because of this law, millions of people who previously could not get insurance have insurance now because of Obamacare. So that's one, or the Affordable Care Act, as it's called. So that is a huge thing. Also, limits on how much money your insurance company will pay over the course of your lifetime. Usually, it was capped at $1 million or $500,000, depending on your insurance plan before. But now it's unlimited, and your insurance will continue to pay until you die, regardless of what kind of illness you may have or how much it costs. So it's another thing. And then, of course, there's also access to the exchange now that people have access and to be able to choose their insurance. Now, I will say that the insurance is expensive if you do not qualify for a subsidy. Now, if you live in a state that provided or took the Obamacare subsidies and which went through Medicare, Medicaid, or whatever, Medicare, then your policy costs would be less, regardless of whether you are qualified for the subsidy or not. However, if you live in a state like Texas, like I do, or other states throughout the nation, mostly red states, who were trying to stick it to Obama and say we're not going to allow the Affordable Care Act to come through Medicare or whatever and help cover these costs because they hated Obama, then your costs may be like double what they were before. So people often blame, Obama's an asshole because he, these are so fucking expensive and nobody can afford this or whatever. Well, yeah, that's because half of the states refuse to take subsidies from him or money through Medicare or adhere to those policies so that they could be cheaper. And then, of course, I have a doctor, for example. I see him. He's my primary care physician. The last, 4 or 5 times I've seen him, he's talked about how much he hates Obama and Obamacare. So last time I saw him, which is a few weeks ago, I said, "You really don't like Obama, do you?" He's like, "Oh, I don't like what he's done to Obamacare, or I don't like Obamacare, and it's raised my rates, and I don't. That's why I don't cover it. I don't accept Obamacare because they expect me to be paid according to the same pay schedule as Medicare, and blah blah blah." And so for me, it's just like doctors are fucking greedy because basically he's just saying he doesn't want to take a reduction in how much he gets. Like he doesn't make enough money as it is. Fuck him. He makes plenty of money, $200,000-$300,000 a year minimum. And most doctors make about $1 million a year if they're, really in demand. So that kind of doctor, I mean. So I'm just saying that so he hates Obama, whatever. And I told him all the reasons it was good, whatever. He's like, well, I don't like it and I don't like him, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I just find it abhorrent and stupid that these people are, or Trump is trying to get rid of Obamacare when it helps so many people. And the worst part of it is, and the twist is that, yeah, they want to get rid of Obamacare, but they have no plan at all to put in its place. So all of these people who are on Obamacare, which I'm not, fortunately, my husband and I are on the same insurance plan through his work since I'm self-employed. But people who are on Obamacare are going to lose it and not have any fucking thing to do. I mean, all these people are going to be looking for fucking insurance and healthcare and not be able to afford it. And it's going to put a huge burden on our society to pay for these people who can afford it in the first place because they don't have insurance. So it is fucked up that he would do that. But this is just the second thing. One of the second things he's done. The third thing he's done is he reinstated the Mexico City policy. And what that is it prevented the federal government from providing funds to foreign non-governmental organizations that perform or provide abortions. So by reinstating that policy, he basically, solidified his position as a pro-life Republican personality and saying that basically he's against abortion. And so he reinstated that as well. Regulations for hiring and regulations and hiring freeze. He also issued an executive order telling all agencies and departments in the executive branch to freeze any pending or forthcoming regulations. And basically that's just saying don't do anything unless I tell you it's okay. And then he also tried to make nice with the CIA by saying previously he'd said that they're among the most dishonest people on earth and they should they made it sound like I had a feud with the intelligence community, he said, quote unquote. And then he comes around and says that they are the greatest thing in the world. Anyway, and then lashed out the media, of course, over the size of his crowds. He's done that. The inauguration crowds. Let's talk about the inauguration. So the inauguration crowds that he had, he literally lied and had his press secretary lie and say that he had the biggest crowds ever at any inauguration in history. And without any evidence to support that, and as a matter of fact, the evidence supported the opposite, an alternative fact as he was presenting it. And what's this guy's name? His press secretary, Sean Spicer, said that it was the most watched around the globe ever, or whatever, all this kind of bullshit. Anyway, all the evidence points to both physical evidence from people who have been photographed, people who were there, and aerial photographs with drones and things like that, prove that he's a fucking liar. If you compare his inauguration to what Obama had, all these seats these spaces were open, not only on the mall, but also on the sides, and the grass were open. In Obama's, everything was filled in. The grass in the mall itself, in the middle, all the white was not showing. It was completely filled and packed. And so for him to say that his was the biggest ever is a fucking lie. And it was barely even half. It wasn't even half full. All the people were in the front. So if he shot a picture, or supported or supplied a picture to support his position, saying that he had tons of people there, more than they thought. Where it was shooting from behind, where he was sitting at the podium. Of course, the people right in front of him, there were tons of people. That's where everybody was, because that's all the people that were there. And yet, when he was marching down the mall, all the bleachers were empty. There's one row of people in one front row of one of the bleachers or whatever every so often, until you got closer to the stage. So the guy's a fucking liar, and he continues to just lie and lie like we don't have fucking eyes and ears and brains. He thinks that simply because he said something, it must be true, and we don't believe that if you have a fucking brain. But he lies all the time because he's so fucking insecure. And I've always said he's insecure because he's got a fucking tiny penis. Now, it's been said also by some hooker he slept with before that he has a small penis. And I've said this before. I didn't need her to tell me he had a small penis, because obviously a man who acts like that has an inferiority complex, and typically it comes from his penis size, because he's obsessed with that, because that's the kind of person he is. He's an egomaniac. So I think it's incredible that he's done these things just so far since he's been in office, and tweeting out and all these things about people or whatever, about how much he hates us or whatever, how much he hates America, and how horrible it is, and America first, which is actually a 1930s KKK rally that was used in those days. And the man is completely devoid of any kind of redeeming qualities. He's just a fucking bag of shit. I mean, that's basically what he is. So people have voted him in. He's our president now, and that we have to deal with it. Now, they're also talking right now about the fact that possibly Trump is he's so pissed off. His ego is so inflated and overinflated and so fragile that he's so pissed off that people don't consider him a legitimate president. He is wanting to possibly do a recall or recount of the votes. Now, if he does that legally, we have to vote again, because he's saying that the votes were not legal or whatever, and that means that the election was somehow rigged or whatever, which of course it was, but but in his favor. But if they do that, that means they have to do a recall, and they have to actually re-vote. So if we were to all re-vote right now in this country, people who voted already and the people who didn't vote because they were too lazy to go out and vote, he would not be president. So I hope he fucking does that. And I hope he fucking actually ends up, his ego is so big that he has to have legitimacy in his mind by the people, and that he actually did win the votes, more votes than Hillary Clinton, and do a recall. Now, I don't think it's going to happen, but that would be awesome. But the thing I'm afraid of is, even if they do that, it's going to be suspect, because I don't know if it's going to be the votes that are counted properly or whatever, and they're just going to say he won when he really didn't, and just to say he beat Hillary or whatever. Anyway, oh God, it's just a fucking nonsense. Now, beyond all of that, what affects me personally is that Trump has now made it very clear that he wants to repeal all of the rights that gay people have earned over the past 50, 60 years, but specifically in the past 10 years or so with gay marriage, and he wants to outdo that, and that's part of their campaign, a promise in a way, and so they want to strip away the rights of gay people. Now in Texas, there's even been a lawsuit brought to strip away our rights as gay people as married couples. So even if we're married, we cannot have the same rights. They're trying to make it so that we cannot have the same rights that heterosexual couples have in Texas now. They're bringing a case back now that Trump's in office. They're emboldened by that, of course. So this is one of the reasons why I cannot stand people who voted for Trump. I hate people who voted for Trump because the people who voted for Trump only voted for him whatever reasons they voted, whether it was because they're bigots or racist or whatever, or because they're looking out for their own self-interest and nothing else. Both are equally abhorrent to me, because if you, as a person and this human being, vote in someone whom you know is a misogynistic, xenophobic, racist, homophobic asshole, he's been proven to be that before he was ever elected. And you, with your own fucking eyes and ears, know that. And you vote for him anyway because of fiscal reasons or whatever your fucking reasons may be. You say you don't like Obamacare, whatever your fucking reasons. You vote for him anyway. Fuck you. You have fucked up my life and the lives of millions of people in this country. Women, gays, lesbians, bi, transgender people, people who are anything but other than Christian or white, heterosexual, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, male. Basically, you fuck them over, which is the majority of this country. And because you are too fucking selfish to give a fuck about people other than yourself. And I've had this entire conversation so many times with Trump, people who voted for Trump or voted him in or whatever, over the past few months or weeks or whatever, because I had a friend on my Facebook page who was friends with my best friend, and I knew her through him, whatever. Her name was Denise, and she lives in Colorado. And I never had a problem with Denise. I knew she was a Republican or whatever, right? And but she was on my Facebook page or whatever, and I was posting, all this horrible things about Trump that are the truth about Trump, basically. And of course, she never really said anything. We were trying to stay neutral about it. And finally, she posted this meme, and you probably have seen it. It's the meme where there's two stick figures, and it's like, Bob and Lisa or whatever, are both on opposite sides of the fence. But, Bob voted for Trump and Lisa voted for, Hillary, but they're still friends because they're adults or whatever. And basically, it's kind of a dig and just saying that, well, I voted for Trump, but at least I'm an adult, enough of an adult to still be friends with some people. And for me, the whole problem is that when people, and this is what most people who are against Trump, feel, and try to convey to people who vote for Trump or have voted for Trump or support him. It's not about the fact that Trump won. It's not about the fact that Trump, the Republican candidate, won. It's not about the fact that Hillary was beaten. It's not about the fact that Bernie didn't win. It's not about any of these things. What it's about is what your vote stands for, what it illustrates to people, what you are saying by voting for Donald Trump. You're saying that you support what this man stands for, not just one thing like his fiscal policies and things like that people keep saying. No, you support everything because his character as a human being is what makes the presidency and what reflects who the president is. And I read something by Sparrow R. Jones, and this is the quote, and this kind of illustrates exactly what I'm trying to say. He says, "I am not mad at you that Clinton lost. I am unconcerned that we have different politics. And I don't think less of you because you vote one way and I vote another. No, I think less of you because you watched an adult mock a disabled person in front of a crowd and still supported him. I think less of you because you saw a man spouting clear racism and backed him. I think less of you because you listened to him advocate for war crimes and still thought he should run this country. I think less of you because you watched him equate a woman's worth to her appearance and got on board. It isn't your politics that I find repulsive. It is your personal willingness to support racism, sexism, and cruelty. You sided with a bully when it mattered, and that is something I will never forget. So no, you and I won't be coming together to move forward or whatever. Trump disgusts me, but it is the fact that he doesn't disgust you that will stick with me long after this election. And I thought that was an incredible quote. And that is exactly how I and so many other millions of people in this country feel. And that is why the divide is there between us and the Trumpsters. Because it is about far more than just a simple vote or partisan vote. This is about morality and humanity, which are both lacking in Trump and his cabinet. And so this is the issue that I have. And taking away my rights as a gay person, or the rights of a woman to have an abortion if he chooses, and trying to do all these things, which he's going to accomplish to some degree. I'm not sure how far he'll get with everything, but he's going to make things very difficult for these people, me and women in general or whatever. And so it is, of course, offensive to us when you vote against us and our rights as human beings. Of course I'm fucking pissed off. Of course I'm angry. Of course I don't like you anymore. Of course I find you to be abhorrent. Of course I find you to be most likely a racist or a homophobe or whatever, because you've supported this man's platform. So to say, oh, I voted for Trump, but I don't really think all these things. I'm not really anti-gay, or I'm not really against women's rights, or fuck you. Effectively, it's the same fucking thing. You, by your actions, have actually said that I support all of those fucking things by your fucking vote. And that's what I keep trying to say to people. So this is very frustrating for me, obviously. Now, someone I love, as you all know. Well, first of all, let's talk about the Women's March. The Women's March, if you don't know, I'm sure you've heard about it by now, was a march that was organized around the country and the world, actually, as a referendum or as an anti-Trump kind of statement, not just about women's rights, but about all of his bigotry and racism and homophobia and all the people he's against, and standing up against the things he believes in and the things he's trying to instill in Americans. And so that's what the march was about. And I marched here in Dallas, Texas, with my best friend and my husband and a good friend of mine, Courtney. And we all went down there and marched. It was a 5.5 mile march up and back, I should say. And so it was quite a march, but we did it. And it was empowering and exciting to see all of these people, women, men, gay, straight, black, white. It was diverse, the group of people, and together. And I felt, for the first time since this election, surrounded and enveloped by love and by people who actually understood and felt the same way that I do about this man and about the people who voted for him. And it was millions of people. It was like 2.5 million people marched that day around the world. And there were like 50,000 people in Austin. I think there were like 8,000 here, 50,000 in Austin, and then like, I don't know, 1 million or something. And I don't know, I think it's 500,000 in DC. And then around the world, there were even more. So there is a huge movement against this man, of course. And one of the people who is against him, whom I love and adore, is Madonna. And Madonna spoke at the Women's March in Washington, D.C. And she's in deep hot water or whatever because of some of the things she said. And one of the things she said as part of her speech was, I have often thought about blowing up the White House lately or whatever, something like that. She's something I've been thinking, she didn't say I've been thinking about blowing up the White House. She said I've often, it's crossed my mind or whatever, because she's so angry is what she's trying to illustrate. And then she finishes that sentence by saying, but I know that will not accomplish anything, meaning she's not really going to do that, and she doesn't really mean to do that. She's just saying she's angry. It's just her way of expressing her anger. And much like me, one of her favorite words is fuck, and she was telling people, fuck you, fuck Trump, fuck, fuck, fuck. Anyway, people were just like, oh my God, how dare she say these things, and she's going to blow up the White House. She didn't say she was going to blow up the White House. She did not say that. She never said, I'm going to blow up the White House. She said, I have felt like it. I've been angry enough that I felt that way. But I know that it's not going to accomplish anything. And she's not going to do that. So people are saying that she should be investigated and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Yet people, when Obama was in office and people were saying, hang Obama and you know, kill the nigger and shit like that. No, they were not upset about that, about people saying that about him. No. But when she just skirts the idea, it never even actually says it or even expresses directly to do something like that, and just says she's angry, then they say that she should be punished or arrested. It's fucking bullshit. Anyway, but I'm so proud of her, and you know, I love Madonna, and this is one of the reasons I adore her, because she speaks her mind. She's much like me. We're very similar that way, and she's got a huge platform because she's ultra famous. It's so that when she says something, people listen. And but she's an incredibly intelligent woman, and she's incredibly political, as you know, and not only in her work artistically, but in her personal life. So I find her, you know, the fact that she went to this and she actually spoke out, the things she said were awesome, and I love her to death. And Cher spoke there, Scarlett Johansson, America Ferrera said some really amazing things. I love her too. I just think they're incredible women, and I think that the women's movement has been, I think Madonna actually said something like this. She said, like, the women's movement has been dormant, and it took this kind of thing to happen to wake us up. And I think that that's amazing, because after the 60s and 70s and, you know, whatever, the women began to get their rights and things like that finally, and equality to some degree, it kind of just you know, feminists are still there, whatever, but there wasn't really a fire lit under that movement, and now it's like reignited, and I think that's incredible. And I hope that the women's movement and the gay and lesbian transgender movement and bi-transgender movement can work together, and I'm sure that they will, as they did in the Women's March and in the future, and actually impress or impart change in this country, and fight and resist, as they say, this administration. And it is a rebellion in a way. And I always often, and even before he was made president, have said that it's much like, you know, the rebellion fighting the Empire, and the Empire Strikes Back. You know, he's Darth Vader, and we're this, you know, we're Skywalker and Leia and Han Solo and those people trying to fight the evil Emperor. So I think it has lit a fire, not just among the women's movement, but amongst many people in this country and in this world. And I think that if you are someone who does not believe in the things that Donald Trump, or Trumpism as I call it, espouses, and you think that it's evil, and I really do think it's evil, and I use the word evil not being a religious person, but I mean evil being just truthfully and truly disgusting, policies, and taking away people's rights, and just a lack of humanity. Like I said, if you believe all that, then fight back. Speak out, for God's sakes. You know, I do my part in my own little way every day of my life. I don't just come on this show every once in a while and talk about things, and that's my part. No, I write about it in a magazine, mootmagazine.com, by the way, MOOT magazine.com. I write about it in local papers and things like that. And I also speak out in my personal life. And that's the last thing I wanted to discuss is how it's affecting people's personal lives. You know, it's directly, like I was mentioning earlier, a former friend of mine and I got into it about Trump, and she said some horrible things to me, and just because I don't agree with her. Now, I did call her, you know, when her best friend is my best friend. She's known him since they were in college. I've known him since after that. But he's like me. He's very liberal, and she's very Republican and conservative. And I told her, I said, look, you voted against your best friend's rights. You know, your best friend's gay, and your best friend is now going to be affected by these laws that take away rights that he may or may not ever want to use. But he's not married or anything, but he may want to be married someday, whatever, or employment discrimination or whatever. And she's, I love my best. I love him. He's my best friend. Blah blah blah. I was like, yeah. Well, your actions speak a lot more than fucking words, And the same thing's happened to me. I don't know if you listened to the show. It wasn't this show. I'm not sure if it was this show. I did it on Off Limits show, or I did it on the Gay XYZ show. I talked about it. I think I talked about the Gay XYZ show. But I have my husband's relatives live in Waco, and his sister has stopped talking to me now. For no reason, really. I mean, literally no reason. And she just stopped talking to me because I don't agree with her daughter-in-law, who apparently is a Trump supporter, and her son, I guess, Trump supporter as well, because he follows whatever his wife tells him to do, basically. And I just said, we were talking. I was on her Facebook page. This is Ashley is her name. She is my husband's. She's my husband's niece or whatever, basically. Anyway, and on her page, she had said something, blah, 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 whatever. Now, she's always been this kind of religious thing, whatever. She's kind of evangelically Christian. But she's always been nice to me and Michael. She's never said a bad word about us, to our face anyway. She's never done anything to make me dislike her. I always liked Ashley. And until she was on her Facebook page, and she said something one day. It was the day after the election or whatever, and I was angry about Trump having won, of course. And she said, "What should I have for dinner or whatever?" And I said, "Trump stew, ha ha ha," innocuous little thing. And then somebody on her page, I guess it was her, I don't know, it's a relative or a friend or whatever, says, "Oh, you fucking whiny liberals, fuck you whiny liberals, you so mad he won, get over it, fuck, liberal, whatever." And so that did not make me happy. And so I responded and said, well, at least, I'm not I didn't vote for a racist, homophobic, xenophobe or whatever. And I said, which makes, if you voted for him, makes you one too, basically. And then she removed our posts, removed my post and his post, and that was it. I was like, okay, fine. She doesn't want me on her page talking about politics. That's fine. I get that. Whatever. And I didn't think a second thing about it. Then 2 days later, she removed me from Facebook completely. Now, she never mentioned a word to me or anything. And we see her every holiday and all of that, and she never said a word to me about it. Not fuck you, not I just want to talk to you about why I'm removing you or whatever. Not one fucking word. No respect at all. So go down there Thanksgiving and expecting to see them, and of course Thanksgiving comes, and we go down there with my husband's sister Cheryl, and as we always do every Thanksgiving, because we spend it with them. Excuse my dog, sorry. They're very loud. And we go down there to spend it with them. And we don't see them at all the first day. Actually, we don't see them at all. Did we see them at all? No. Did we see them? No, I didn't see them at all the whole weekend. They said they were busy or whatever. Now, they'd never been busy. They always came to visit with us when we were down there before. So I knew that there was still weirdness, right? And so at dinner that night, I talked to Cheryl and my husband. Cheryl, my husband, and I go to dinner. And this is the night before Thanksgiving or whatever. And or night after Thanksgiving, I think. Whatever. Anyway, and so we go to dinner, and I sit down, and I say to Cheryl, I said, what's going on with Ashley? She said, well, what do you mean? And she acted like she didn't know what I was talking about. Like, she acted stupid. I go, well, the Facebook thing. Oh, you mean that? Oh, yeah, well, I just want to let you know that I agree with everything she says. I agree with everything she says. That's the first thing she says out of her mouth. I agree with Ashley. Well, she didn't even give me an opportunity to respond. She never said to me, she didn't hear my side of the story is basically what I'm trying to say. She didn't hear anything I had to say. She just said, I agree with her and I don't agree with you. And it pissed me off, of course. And I was like, well, can I at least, express myself and talk about it, whatever? You can, but I don't know what the point is, what's the point talking about it, blah, blah, blah. And just completely shut off about the whole thing. And then I started telling her, well, let me explain to you why I feel the way I do. And I explained to her basically why I feel the way I do. I feel like if she wanted to remove me from Facebook, I don't really care about that. I said, but I feel like she should have been at least respectful enough to me to talk to me about what, happened and what transpired. And, so I said, there should be no weirdness between us. I'm not angry at her or anything. And, she said, well, she just didn't want that stuff on her Facebook page. I said, that's fine. I said, I don't care, but she should still talk to me. And there's no reason to be angry at me. I said, all I talked about was Trump. Did she vote for Trump? She's like, I don't know who she voted for Trump or whatever, blah, 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 blah. But that's not the point, but whatever. I was like, okay, well, anyway, so she and I had this whole argument. The first argument we've ever had in our entire relationship in 9 years, having known her since she's my husband's sister. And she basically wouldn't let me speak, wouldn't let me say anything hardly. I mean, literally, I had to finally say, can I at least say something? For God's sakes, you're not letting me say one word. And finally I did and told her how I felt. And I said, all I want her to do is just talk to me and talk, you know. And her and her whole family don't talk about anything. They're just those kind of people who don't discuss shit, right? And I'm the kind of person who feels it's necessary to discuss every fucking thing because that's how you move through things, you know. I'm also the kind of person who doesn't, when I have an argument or disagreement with someone, it doesn't mean it's the end of our friendship or relationship. It's just a bump in the road where we disagree on something. However, his family, specifically his sister, and most of them all feel like, well, if you disagree with me, then fuck you. And they just don't want to even talk to you anymore. So whatever, we got through that night, whatever. The rest of the weekend was okay. Came back through Christmas, and Ashley and Brian are there. And Brian's all talking to me and everything, and like nothing ever happened. And I just talking to him like nothing ever happened. Ashley didn't really say it. Ashley didn't say a word to me, actually. Nothing. She didn't say anything to me. And just the whole time sitting there across from me, never said a word. And so it was very tense and uncomfortable. And so on Facebook, I put, wow, I got through Christmas. It was very tense and it was very uncomfortable or whatever, something like that. Thank God that's over. And I put it out publicly so that they could see it, so that they could know that I was uncomfortable and know that I felt, you know, uncomfortable in the whole situation. But I was not rude to her or anything. I was not even not nice to her. She just never said anything to me. And so the next day, the day before we leave, same thing, come over. She doesn't really say anything to me, nothing the whole time, the whole day. We had lunch or whatever. And then when we're leaving, I was going out the door and I said bye to everybody. And I said, bye, Ashley. And she said, bye, you have a safe trip. And that was it. So I told her that so that she would feel, you know, I'm okay. I'm not mad at you or anything. You know, even though she was not talking to me, I wasn't mad at her. And so I said to her, well, you know, that to let her know, kind of a cue that, you know, it's okay to talk to me or whatever. And so I left and I thought everything was okay and we're going to be fine. So we go back every Christmas and Thanksgiving and Easter, and that's what we do. Usually we go to Waco. So then 2 days later, what happens? Was it 2 days later or the next day or something like that? My husband gets a text message from my sister-in-law that says, well, I guess we're at a crossroads now. Apparently, you know, Donovan's not comfortable around us or whatever else. So I guess we just won't be around him anymore, blah, 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 blah. Because of what I had said on Facebook or whatever, the day before or whatever. And we just need to be around y'all. And apparently he just doesn't like us or want to be around us or whatever. Now, I never said I didn't like them and didn't want to be around them. None of that shit. She just made that fucking shit up out of her fucking head. Never said a fucking thing like that. Not one thing. And so she goes on and on about that and whatever. And I'm like, what the fuck? And so I responded to her. I said, if you have a problem with me, come to me, not to my husband. He has nothing to do with it. Basically, at the end of it, she said to him, well, we love you, and I guess we'll just won't see y'all anymore or whatever. And so basically, she's shutting me out. So I talked to her about it. It was a long letter saying, I was just saying, she said she was upset because I had said that I was uncomfortable or whatever. And I said, well, I was uncomfortable. I said I was allowed to be uncomfortable if someone's not talking to me and icing me out, you know, and that was the truth. That's how I felt. And, well, you don't need to put it out for the whole public to see, blah, 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 whatever. So she was more upset about the fact that it was public than the fact that it was upsetting to me or the situation. And so anyway, she and I go back and forth, only through email. And I kept telling her, I said, we need to sit down and talk. I said, I don't understand where all this anger is coming from you. I said, you're not Ashley. I said, why are you having this reaction to me? I said, you know, this makes no sense. And so I kept telling her, I'll come down to Waco during the week. We'll have lunch with you, whatever, but I want to talk about this in person, not over the, you know, text message or whatever. And she just kept refusing to do it, refused to come down, whatever, and basically kept putting words in my mouth, saying I said this about her, I thought this about her, blah, blah, blah. Shit I never said, and I didn't even think. And she basically had already made up her mind that she was no longer going to be she didn't want me around anymore. For whatever reason, she just decided to shun me. And she's done this to the rest of her family as well. So she's used to doing that. So, you know, we have a very small family, my husband's side of my family, me and him, and it was Cheryl and his niece, Kristen, his nephews, Brian and Trey. And that was it. We were our little family. We all these past 9 years, whatever, we were always doing stuff together, and we were, that was it. When we weren't with my family, my mom and whatever. Oh, and that's the other thing. She was upset. Well, said I had to go to Christmas. It was, I don't know what she said. She said, she was quoting me about what I said on Facebook, saying that I said, well, I was uncomfortable around his family, and she was pissed I said his family instead of my family. Well, I meant by blood, obviously, his family. She is his family, and then I have my family, who's my mom. That's all I have left of my family that I talk to. So anyway, just petty bullshit. And so she's decided just to ice me out and not having to do with me anymore. Now, so coming up Easter, we usually go down to Easter. We usually go down around May, and then usually around the 4th of July, and then Labor Day. And every year it's always the same thing, right? And so I'm not even going to be doing that anymore. Now, my husband and I have decided, I'm going to be part of whatever. So whether she wants me around or not is not her decision to make, because we're married. And so I come as part of the group. And they haven't even spoken to each other about it. Not one word. She hasn't said one word to him about it. He hasn't said one word to her about it. Nothing about the whole situation, which I find bizarre. But anyway, so it's just a done deal. And this is all because Trump stuff, something I said about Trump on my niece's by marriage's Facebook page. And so people's feelings about all this stuff run high. And the point of telling you all that is that, I don't know if Ashley and Brian, who are my niece and nephew through my husband's side, voted for Trump or not. I feel like they did, because that's why I think a lot of this is coming from, because all the things I say about Trump people and people who voted for Trump, and I hate people who voted for Trump and they're idiots and whatever. Well, if they did vote for Trump, I do feel they're idiots. I mean, they are idiots if they voted for Trump, and they're assholes for voting for Trump, because, yeah, that's how I feel. They don't get an exemption because they're relatives, but that doesn't mean I hate them. Doesn't mean that I don't want anything to do with them. It means that we disagree, and I do think that they're idiots for voting for Trump. Now, I can see how they piss them off. I can see how they get upset about that, whatever, but never a fucking word. So then Brian removes me from Facebook, and Ashley, like I said, removed me, and then Cheryl removes me from Facebook, and the only person that's left now is Kristen. I think she's still on there. I don't know. But she doesn't even say anything to me. She's just on my Facebook. She never talks to me anything. I tried to talk to her. She refused to. So it's just her and her other son, Trey, who's not around right now, who talked to me, and it's all because of this. Now, I guess what I'm getting at is it worth it to stand up for your beliefs when it is something as important as civil liberties and humanity and human rights? Yes, I think it is. This is not like a George Bush thing. I've said this before. This is not like what it was like with George Bush. George Bush was an idiot and not a great president at all, and fucked up the world in a lot of ways. And did a lot of things that were underhanded and so forth. But he was a typical Republican, right? I mean, he did things the way most Republicans do. But he wasn't completely, compared to Trump, he wasn't this tyrannical kind of president. Now, this is about someone who is trying to take my rights away and the rights of many people who aren't like him. So there's a huge thing at stake here. There's a lot at stake. And I think that's what people need to remember and realize, that we're talking about civil rights, human rights, and just basic human decency and humanity. And if you're going to vote for someone who is the epitome of the opposite of all of that, and you're going to vote against me directly, your vote is against me. And that's the other thing. If Ashley and Brian and them voted for Trump, they're voting against me and their uncle and people that they know who are gay, and they have another uncle who's gay, even though they know us and supposedly, quote unquote, love us. They're voting against us. And that is the epitome of hypocrisy. So they're fucking hypocrites if they did. I don't know that they did, because they won't fucking talk to me now. But whatever the case may be, them or whomever, you're a fucking hypocrite if you vote for Trump and you support all of this bullshit he's trying to implement, yet you say you love gay people or you support women's rights or whatever. Fuck you. You're a fucking hypocrite, what you are. So, yeah, I'm fucking pissed about it. And yes, I do believe it's worth it, because we're talking about civil rights. So Some people just want to stay out of politics, and the fact is you cannot stay out of politics because politics affects everyone. It affects you whether you want it to affect you or not. And that's like his sister was always saying, I don't get involved in politics and blah, blah, blah. Well, you don't get involved in politics because you're lazy. You don't get involved in politics because you have other things to do, whatever, just like the rest of us do. But you need to if you want to actually have fucking rights at the end of the day. And people who don't get involved in politics deserve whatever comes their way, whether they like it or not, because they're not involved in the first place. I feel very strongly about this, as you well know. Now, God, I'm sorry. I'm just like going off today. I will say also something funny that happened to me at the grocery store. We were at the grocery store, and I was in the cereal aisle. And this is last week, or I think it was last week or week before last or whatever. Anyway, and yeah, I think it was a week or so ago. And I'm in the cereal aisle looking at cereal, and this woman walks by. She's young, probably like 25 or something like that. She has a baby and a cart, and she walks by and she smiles at me, and I smile at her, just like in passing, and she goes on. And then like 5 seconds later, she backs up and comes back. She looks straight in my eyes, and she goes, "Can I tell you something?" I go, "Sure." And now I thought she was going to say something, a compliment my eyes or something. I get that all the time for whatever reason. People love my eye color and the way my eyes look or whatever. And so I said, "Sure." And she said, "Do you know that God loves you?" And I was like, and my friend was with me, Ken, it was there, and he's like, his face got, like, his eyes got big, and he turned red, sort of, because he knew that, oh my God, the storm was coming, my response to her, probably. And I was just not, that day, in a mood to even talk about it, or even, I thought, like, in a millisecond in my head, all these things I could say to her, and I wanted to say to her about that. And decided just to be kind and said, "Thank you so much. That is so kind. I really appreciate that." And she smiled and she kind of hurried off. And that was it. And I thought about where it's coming from. From her perspective, it's coming from a place of love. Even though I think proselytizing and trying to convert people is bullshit and wrong. I think it's none of her fucking business what religion I am, what I believe, or what she thinks God thinks about me. She doesn't even fucking know me. That's what I'm thinking, right? But instead, I said that to her because I think her intentions are good, even though they're probably misguided. So that was my response. I just thought it was funny. And then later on in the store, we saw her with this group of other kids like her age, these other guys, and they were cornering people in the aisles and talking about Jesus Christ and God, blah, 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 blah. Good for you. You have a faith. Good for you. Congratulations, whatever. The only problem I have is when you try to impinge upon my rights as a human being. I don't care what you believe. You can be a fucking Scientologist, which is bullshit. You can be a Christian, which I think is bullshit. You can be a Catholic, which I think is bullshit. You can be any religion you want, which I think all of them are bullshit. Whatever religion you are, congratulations. That's between you and your God or whatever you believe in. I don't give a fuck. Just don't tell me who I'm supposed to be, how I'm supposed to be, how I'm supposed to act, and what I'm supposed to believe in, because it's none of your fucking business. You are not, quote unquote, God in the first place. And I know a lot of them have a directive, special religions, especially Scientologists and Christians, both cults, in my opinion, they both feel that you have to do that and spread the word of the gospel and God and all that kind of bullshit. Well, good for you. But the reality is I'm not part of your religion, so stay the fuck out of my life. One time I got an estimate from a contractor here at my house, and I was like, on the back of his business card, when he left, he handed it to me, said, "I want to tell you about Jesus Christ," and blah, 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 blah. And there was no way I was gonna use this guy, and then when I saw that, there was no way I was gonna use him. It completely turned me off. To me, it's the equivalent of someone saying to a Christian, on the back of their business card, instead of saying, "Do you know about Jesus Christ?" Whatever, all fucking Christians are fucking cultists and idiots and assholes, and you're all morons or whatever. It's the same thing. And I wouldn't say that to someone unless they were asking me my opinion about Christianity. But this guy just took it upon himself to do that. And it's happened to me like 2 or 3 times. And it's just so fucking annoying. Keep your fucking opinion to yourself. I didn't ask you for your opinion. Keep it to your goddamn self. You know what I mean? So it's just like with politics. I don't go around telling people, you need to do this and you do that unless they ask my opinion. about politics or what I believe or whatever. Of course, I will tell you I have an opinion about every fucking thing, obviously, but it's none of my business what you do, unless it affects me. And it's the same with Christianity, religion, whatever. Whether it's politics or religion, whatever, I don't care what you believe, what you do, as long as what you do doesn't impinge upon my rights. And the problem with Trump and Trumpists, as I'll call them, and Trumpsters, is that what they believe in does. It impinges upon my rights and the millions of others around the world. And these alternative facts that they keep presenting is just a way to control the masses mentally and the people who have weak minds. So it's sad that the people who have the weakest minds are the ones that seem to be, in the know right now. The ones who have their candidate in office, because the world is going to go down the fucking drain now that he is president. I really believe that in my bones, that all the great progress we've made, not just in civil rights and human rights, but the things that Obama accomplished. He's left us with an incredible economy, a very healthy economy with a great housing market, with all these great job market. Everything in this country has been turned around since the Bush administration. And if you look at the history of this country and you look at those things, unemployment, the housing market, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, all of these things, how well they do under a Democrat versus how horribly they do under a Republican. The evidence and the facts, not alternative facts, but the facts, the truth is and proves that a Republican president and Congress is bad for America, whereas a Democratic one is good. And that is the difference between Republicans and Democrats. I truthfully believe in my soul. And of course, there's not every single Democrat's the same and not every single Republican's the same. I'm talking about en masse and in general, the thrust of each side. And the thrust of a conservative versus a liberal is that conservatives think, what is in it for me and how will it affect me only? And a liberal thinks, how will this affect everyone? What's the common good for the whole of humanity? That is the difference between us. And for someone to say that a conservative viewpoint is somehow better or kinder or something is a fucking lie, because they don't really give a fuck about being kind. They don't give a fuck about being nice or what's good for everyone else. They only give a fuck about making money and what's in it for them. Fuck the environment. Who gives a fuck of the environment? We all fucking die in 50 years because the environment is uninhabitable. As long as they get millions of dollars now, they're going to be alive. They don't give a fuck about their kids or their grandkids or anybody else who's going to be living then. They just give a fuck about their lives now and making as much money as they can. That's all they give a fuck about. Democrats in general and liberals in general support the environment, trying to save the planet, trying to help save what we have left, what little time we have left to try to save what we have and clean up the air and to save the bees, which if the bees die, people, the bees die, we die. I hope you know that. If the bees die, we die, because they cross-pollinate so fucking much of our agriculture and flowers and things like that and trees, all these things. You don't understand that we need nature. We cannot just be the master of nature and expect it to not retaliate in this way, and that's what happens. And so what's happening in our globe, on our globe, and the Arctic ice shelf is melting and going away, which is going to raise the temperature. Raise the oceans by an abundant amount, and you're eventually not going to have New York City or any of the coast of Florida or any of these, or Louisiana, the coast of Texas, coast of where LA is and San Francisco. All of it's going to be gone in 50 years if things continue in the same way. But the way we as humans are, we don't give a fuck as long as it doesn't affect us. If it doesn't affect us instantly, if we can't see it affecting us right now, we don't give a fuck. We have to actually be in a crisis mode before we change anything. It's sad. I mean, we as a whole, as humanity, that's how we are. So until we can't breathe the air, until we no longer have crops of corn or wheat or tomatoes or whatever, or grapes or fruit or whatever anymore, because there are no longer any bees, because of what's it called, bee colony collapse or something like that. Because of these things, until those things happen, we're not going to do fucking anything about it. And it's going to be too late. And so instead of listening to the people who are trying to do good in this world, which are people who are generally, of course, I'm saying generally, everybody's evil in some way or another, on one side, both sides of the coin. But in general, liberals are just good people and trying to help everybody else and help themselves as well in the end, but help everybody at the same time and not just look out for their own best interests. So support your liberal candidates, people who actually are going to support these things, which is whether it's the environment or human rights or civil rights or or healthcare as a right or whatever the case may be. You can support them through your local Congress, your local state Congress, and also through your federal Congress and your senators, of course, vote. It's most important that you vote in the midterm elections. And the reason for that is because we don't really determine who our president is with our vote when it's the time to vote for president. We determine it before that in the midterm elections because of the way the electoral college system works. So if you have the majority of electors, people in Congress and people in the Senate and everything are generally liberal, then when it's time to elect the president, most of the electors are going to be that, and most of them are going to elect the president as such in each state. So you need to vote in the midterm elections coming up in 2018. If you don't, we're fucked again. And you need to vote for your Congress people and everything else. Also, run for office, for God's sakes. I would run for office. I totally would, but I'm so fucking polarizing. There's no way that I would ever win. I'm such a polarizing figure, So is Trump. Trump's a polarizing figure, but so is, I guess, Bernie Sanders is too. Maybe he's like me in that way. I would totally run for my local city council if I had $500,000 to beat Jennifer Staubach Gates, whom is our current representative. Shut up! Sorry. So I would do that if I could, but I don't have $500,000 to throw away on a campaign. I'm sorry. And she's running unopposed, and I can't stand her, and a lot of people hate her. She's actually Roger Staubach's daughter, and she ran based on her name only and won based on that. She didn't win because she has any experience or had any kind of knowledge. And I've met with her in person about things in our neighborhood, and she's been mean and she's been horrible. And she even laughed when I told her that my husband stripped in our street because the street wasn't repaired. And she's a bitch, basically. You can't stand her. She's a cunt. And so I would totally run against her if I knew I could win, but I can't because I am polarizing myself. And so, but I do what I can in my own way. But if you have the money and you have the desire to affect change directly through your, through office, then do it, please. We need you to vote. And don't worry about if people don't know who you are. People can know who you are eventually. And even if you don't have money, you can still run. I mean, I could still run against her if I wanted to, but I wouldn't win because I'm hated so much in my neighborhood, but that's another story. Anyway, I should go while my dogs are barking, so I apologize for that. Is there anything else real quick before I go on my list? I talked about Mary Tyler Moore died today, 80 years old. And also, that's it, I guess. So, okay, so thanks for listening to the Off Limits show. I'll be back next time, whenever that will be, for another Off Limits show. I'll be back actually this Thursday with Jason on the XYZ show if you want to listen to that. Be sure and check us out there. You can go to offlimitshow.com and find out more about me. I haven't updated the site in a long time, but I will when I have time. You can also go to gayxyz.com to find out more about that show with me and Jason on every Thursday at 9 p.m. Central in Dallas. And as I said, you can always call in live 214-377-0481, or you can call the Off Limits show on Skype if you want to talk to me and discuss what we're discussing that day. So thank you for listening, whether you listen live or in the archives. I really appreciate it, and I will talk to you next time. Goodbye.